everyone, my name is Dena. Today we're going to be doing a necklace. It's called the Twisted Caterpillar. We're going to be using some RounDuos, or if you choose, RounDuo Minis, and we're going to be using herringbone to where it's going to make it look like it's twisting. So gather up the list of supplies that are listed down below, meet me back and I'll show you what to do. Alright, so the first step that we're going to need to do to make this necklace is we're going to make a very long strip of herringbone stitch. So depending on how many either RounDuos or RounDuo Minis that you want to use, to calculate how many rows you need to do, let's just say we're going to do the same amount that I'm going to do in this necklace, which is 60 of the RounDuo Minis. So to calculate how many rows of herringbone we need, you would multiply 60 by 2, which is 120, then add 4 to it. So it'd be 124 rows. I know that's a lot, but you'll love the end result of it. All right, so if somebody does not know how to do herringbone, then I'll walk you through it as best as I can. So I have gray wildfire in the size 6. I have a stop bead at the end, like I typically do. We're picking up 2 8/0s. The first stitch that we'll end up doing to start off the herringbone is just a ladder stitch. So we have 2 8/0s. We want to go back through that first one that we added, going in the same direction as the thread already going in currently. And I'm not sure if you can hear my dog snoring in the background. But so our thread is coming out of the left-hand bead and going outwards, away from the product. So we're going to add our second row, which is going to be 2 more 8/0s. We're coming out of the left-hand bead. We want to go down the right-hand bead. Pardon my thumb for a second so I can make sure I'm holding on to everything. So now your beads look something similar to that. Now we need to get up to add more beads onto our row. So in traditional herringbone, you can add something, or sometimes you can just go straight up this bead. Just go straight up that way, but you'll have threads sitting off this side. So what I'm going to do is add a series of beads. For one, cover up that thread, and 2, it helps create a channel at the end to where you can add your RounDuos or your RounDuo Minis, whichever you choose. So I picked up a 15, 11, 8, excuse me, so 15, 11, 8, 11, 15, and put that on my needle. Then I'm going to go straight up. Sorry about that. Going to go straight up the right hand side bead to get ready to add our third row of herringbone. So when we add that, it should land everything in more of a picot style off to the side. Now I'm manipulating the beads a little bit to where the 8/0 sticks out a little bit more. That just helps you in the long run, because when you get done with the herringbone, we're going to be going through just those 8/0s and not these 11s and 15s on the side. So it just makes it a little bit easier to grab onto them. So our next row, we're going to add 2 more beads. So now we're coming out of the, come on beads, now we're coming out of the right hand side. To add this row, we need to go down the left hand side bead. So just that one bead. And when you pull this, that gets your beads to situate like that. So now we need to add our side beads on there. So 15, 11, 8, 11, 15. So now we're coming out of this bead down here. We need to get ready to add our next row of herringbone. So we need to jump up to the next bead above it. So we're going to go through the left-hand bead towards the center. Put those beads on there, manipulate them a little bit to where your 8/0, and throw your beads everywhere, and to where your 8/0 sits kind of like a picot like that. So we'll do it one more time, just in case those that are new to it. So there's your 2 coming out on the left hand side. We're going to go down the right hand side. And then these beads should sit kind of where they're cupped in a little bit. Of course, my tension is not great at the moment because I'm showing you how to do this. I'm adding my side beads, which is the 15, 11, 8, 11, 15. Coming out of the second on the right hand side, we need to get ready for the next row. So we're going to the right hand side, going up that first bead, the last bead that we just added. Manipulating the side. And we'll do this other side one more time. So 2 beads go on. Coming out the right, we need to go down the left. Making your beads sit kind of like they're in a V shape. Add your side beads. And then go back up the left hand side. And if that makes it a little hard for you, you can always flip it in your hands. I know when I first started learning how to do herringbone, I did just that. So I had this in my hands. I would pick up my 2 beads, go down the right hand side to add that row, and then to get ready, I would add my side beads or go up the side that I wanted to go up, and then go up that side. And since I'm right-handed, it was a little bit easier to flip. So now you're set up to where you can add your 2 new beads again. Go down to your next row. And now you're in a comfortable position to be able to add your side beads again. So whatever is just comfortable for you. If you're able to do the left and right additions without flipping your product, perfectly fine. Still works the same way. So that is the first step. It's a pretty simple step once you get the stitch down. If you're new to it and everything, if you're familiar with it, you have about 124 rows of your herringbone to go. So right now I have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows of herringbone. So I have that many more to do. And once you get done with that, I will meet you back and I will show you the next step. Alright, so when you are done with your 124 rows of herringbone, your needle should be coming out of this bead right here. And that's the last herringbone stitch that I did. I went ahead and did the next stitch a little bit further down so you can kind of see what's ahead. Now, to get to this portion over here to start adding your round duos or the RounDuo Minis, I'm doing the Minis today. My other sample has the duos in it. Coming out of this stitch, this is the other portion of that last herringbone stitch. I went down that bead, down this bead, through the 15, 11, and then the 8, and then came out right here. So this is where you start adding all of your RounDuos, RounDuo Minis, and you do that straight down the rope, which I like the rope to begin with because it would make kind of a neat wrap bracelet as well. So you just put your RounDuo Mini on your needle, go through one of the holes, go from one 8/0 to the next 8/0, and that is it for this step. So this is a simple step, kind of gives you a little bit of a break because that was a very repetitive step on this last one. So go straight down your rope to the other end, adding your RounDuos or your Minis, and will meet you back and show you the next step. Okay, so I'm coming down to the end of adding my Minis on. So this is my last one to add. Hopefully, oh, that hole is kind of clogged. I'll just pick up another one off the mat. So one thing I forgot to do, so I'm praying that my holes are all clear in my RounDuo Minis. I forgot to check them before I started, so we shall see. Okay, so now I'm at the end. Now what we'll end up doing is folding this in half. And then when you do that, you make kind of a taco. And then this 8/0 seed bead will end up going through the other hole of the mini on the other side. So it kind of tacos it up. So to get over there, go ahead and add another 8/0 on the end of your thread. And then go through the 8/0 on the other side of your rope. When you taco it together, then it makes it a little bit easier to go through your next bead. Make sure you're keeping a pretty good tension. Mine just got really loose just then. But you don't want to be too tight. Now, just like I do with a lot of things, I usually go out and go back down and reinforce and everything, which I will do on this one as well. Okay. So this is your next 8/0, and see how I said if you make it more of a picot, it's easier to go through. This one is not sitting upright, so I kind of pushed it out a little bit. So go through your next 8/0 in line, and then go through the other hole of the next RounDuo or your RounDuo Mini. And then when you pull it tight, let me rearrange this a little bit. There we go. That way I can kind of hold my tension a little bit better, a little easier. Might be able to see it better too. I'll show you once or twice this way. So this is my next 8/0. I'm going to go ahead and go through the next bead as well. That probably is a better angle. You can probably see that a lot easier now. So my next 8/0, go through the next RounDuo. And that's all you're doing on this part of the step, or in this step. Now eventually your product will start to curve a little bit because the size of the RounDuos or the minis is a completely different size than the rest of the beads. In fact, you can kind of see it twisting a little bit already. And that's normal. That will happen. So just depending on which one you decide to do, whether it's these that are the 4mm beads, or if you decide to do the RounDuos, which are around a 5mm bead, this one's probably going to twist a little bit more than the 5mm, or vice versa. I don't know. I haven't finished it yet, so I don't know for sure. So just continue on down your product until you get to the other end. And then I will show you the next step, which would be to finish this portion off, and then to add our wire guard. And we're almost done. Okay, so this just happened to me. I got down to the very end of my rope, and as you can see, I still have one 8/0 sitting out here off to the side that does not have a RounDuo Mini in it. So what do you do then? Or, well, this is what you can do to fix it. Or if you want to add on to your rope and make it longer than the 60. So you're coming out of the last 8/0 because I just went through the last hole of the last mini that was on my project. So I'm coming out of that 8/0. Go ahead and add another mini. And go ahead and go through that last 8/0 that's sitting there. That was the lone one. I'm more than likely just miscounted, but at least this is a learning tool. So we're going through that 8/0. Now we're going to go ahead and we need to get back over here to this side to add on another row of herringbone so we can have that extra 8/0 sticking out, so we can go ahead and go through this one because our other 8/0 is already here. That's the first one that we did. So we need to get over there. So go down, making sure I'm in frame. Go down the 11 and the 15, and then come out of the left-hand side of that last herringbone that we had added. And so now that sets you up to add another row of herringbone. So put your 2 seed beads on. You're coming out of the left, and you need to go down the right bead. Now this is going to sit sometimes not quite right, but it'll look okay. Now we need to add that extra on the side to hide the thread and to give us that extra 8/0 that we need in order to go through with our RounDuo. So add your 5 beads, go up through your herringbone stitch, manipulate that out so it's easier to grab onto here in a minute. So now we're coming out of that right hand bead, but this is the bead that we need to go through this hole. So now we need to work around our product again to get over there. So we need to go down. I'm going to flip it this way so it's a little easier to see. This is the back side of it, and this is the left hand bead. So this is the left hand side of the herringbone when it's facing correct, when it's facing upwards. So we're going to go down 3 rows of the herringbone on the left hand side, which will put you to where you can go up your 15, your 11, and then come out to your 8 in the correct direction that we need to be going in. So I'm going to do just that. And my beads are kind of facing in weird directions, so this may take me a second. And of course I'm not holding it correctly and everything, so my tension is not great either. So that went down 2 rows of herringbone. And that is the 3rd row of herringbone. So now I'm set up to where I can go back up the 15 and the 11 that's sitting there. Go through your 8, and then now, well, maybe go through your 8. There we go. Okay, so now we're set up to do something similar to what we did on the other side where we did that round. So go ahead, you're coming out of that last 8/0, go ahead and add an 8 on your needle. Jump over here to this 8/0 that we just added because we accidentally left it out. Go through your last RounDuo that you just added. Now to connect it all, go back through your first 8/0 that you started adding your RounDuos on, and I'm going to go ahead and go through the first RounDuo again too. Okay, and then when you push your tension a little bit tighter, then it brings it all in. So now this next step can be done in a couple different ways. So we need to add wire guards on both ends of our rope. So you can do it a couple different ways. You can go all the way back down to the end of the rope and reinforce everything, which is probably what I'll do here in a second. But if you don't want to do that, then all you have to do is get yourself back up to where you were coming out of that last 8/0 again, right here. So to do that, I'm already coming out of this RounDuo Mini. I'm just going to go ahead and go over to the other hole. It's going to put a little bit of thread sitting there. You're probably not going to notice it whatsoever. And I'm already going through the 8/0 that's sitting right next to it. Then go through this RounDuo Mini, and then this would be the last 8/0. Okay, if you go through the 11/0, that's perfectly fine too, because what you want to do is you want to get down to the herringbone stitch down here, which your herringbone is those two beads right there. Those two at the very end. So I'm coming out of that 11. I'm going to go down into the 15, and I'm going straight through those last 2 rows of the herringbone on the left hand side, and then coming out. Now here we're going to add one more 8. We're going to go through this side of the herringbone. So we're going down the right, so that way it just kind of leaves a little bit of a picot. I'm flipping the herringbone to the back. I'm jumping over to the other side So this is where we're coming out of. We're coming out of the left-hand side of this bead here. I'm going over to the right-hand side and going up that one, so that way we can circle through the 8-0 that we just added. Okay, now I'm going to flip it back to the front again. And then now I'm set up to where I can add my wire guard. So go up the one side of the channel, go down the other side. Make sure your thread stays in the channel itself. And again, I pinch mine ever so slightly. That helps to guide the thread into the channel. And then go back through your 8-0. Now do this a couple of times. Just like everything else I do, and like I've already said a couple of times, I do this at least 2 to 3 times. Because I like to reinforce my jewelry. Again, I'm pinching it just to keep it in the thread, or in the channel. And there you go. So you would do the same thing on the other end. Now, like I said, I'm probably going to go through all of the first sides of the beads anyway, just to get another strand of thread through everything, because it does create a little bit of a tension. So I would suggest to at least go back through maybe the last, maybe 10 beads or so of your RounDuos or your RounDuo Minis, especially if you're doing the RounDuos, because the RounDuo necklace gets very, very, very tight. As you can see, there's, I don't know if you can see the thread or not right there, but the thread on the RounDuos shows up a lot more on the edge. So I would definitely suggest, if you're doing the RounDuos, go back through at least the last 10 beads again, at least another time, if not twice more, because that tension will eventually tear on the thread, or at least stretch it, and it would make breakage a little bit easier than typical. So go ahead and reinforce if you like, and then add your other wire guard on the other end, and come back and I'll show you how to attach the chains to finish up your necklace. Okay, so when you get your rope completed, your rope should look something similar to this, where it is just twisting around, and then your end should look something like that. So you have your wire guards stuck on some 8-0s at the end. So for the next step, we're going to add our chain so we can make it a little bit longer. If you wanted to, you can always continue on with your rope to make it long enough to go around your head. I did that with one of my options as well, and I ended up using, I believe it was 150 of the RounDuos, and it ended up being pretty neat, but it was very chunky, and it's definitely not my style. I'm not very much on the chunky type of necklaces. So for this part, I have 2 links of chain that I cut at 5 inches. So you just cut as much as you want to. It depends on what type of length that you want for your necklace. I have 4 jump rings here. I have my clasp. I'm using this twist clasp. That's the only one that I have available at the house at the moment, so that's what I'm using. So we're going to add our chain. Very simple. Just put a jump ring on, connect it to one of the loops of the chain that's at the end, twist it back closed, maybe, and then to add on your clasp, do the same thing. Go to the end of the chain, the other end. Probably would help if I put my other pliers down. And then add your end of your clasp. Do the same thing on the other side. And your necklace will be complete after you get your clasp on. So there are so many different ways that you can do this type of necklace. There's different beads that you can use. There's different, oh, I forgot to add the chain. That's what I get for talking. Different beads that you can use, different sizes. It'd be neat to be able to see if somebody can do 2 rows of herringbone in a row, like 2 columns of herringbone, and then see what size bead that you can add to that. See if you can add a bigger bead or even a smaller bead, and see what type of a curvature that you get with that type of a herringbone stitch starting out. There's other stitches that you can use. You can probably use ladder stitch instead as well as maybe even peyote. Different things you can try. Always, if you end up changing things up, Allie always says this, note it down in the bottom in the comments to help other people that like to do changes as well, to give them more ideas on how to make their necklace their own. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did. Now don't forget to like and subscribe, so that way you'll get notified the next time PotomacBeads comes out with a new video. So get ready, because the next one's coming up and I know it's going to be a good one.